Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am wearing a hat because my hair is doing things that I have no control over. So, you boys wearing a hat today. We're here. We're here and we're ready. And it is time to end this season with a bang. As I always say, once more with feeling, the Super Bowl episode of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2024-2025 NFL season. It has been a long road to get here, as it always is, and we are ready to close this season out with the Super Bowl episode. Now, obviously, where there's only one game to talk about, this won't be as long as it normally is, this episode, and stop me if you've heard that one before from me. But we're also going to have a couple of extra little goodies that we're going to throw in there as we normally do in the Super Bowl episode. And I talked about them on Twitter, which we're going to talk about kind of where my content, I guess, is going to go for the next couple of months before the CFL kicks back up again in late May, early June. And also, we're going to look at the recipients of like the big awards last night at the NFL Honors, because I have some thoughts, like a lot of people seem to have some thoughts. And I feel like I'm less negative on the NFL Honors last night, but maybe that's not true. Maybe you'll prove me wrong here as we go. So, since this is the last stream of the NFL season, I'll just get anybody that happens to be in the chat, if you can just double check for me that the audio is okay, and we will be ready to roll. We already got a couple people in the chat. We've got Gorian in the chat. We've got Broken Ankle, and we've got Chris Carter. Chris, I appreciate you stopping by. I know you can't always make it, but that's awesome. Good to see you. Gorian says KC wins. My bet is Kansas City team total over 27 to win. Okay, very interesting. Broken Ankle says, I've been looking forward to your show for 2 weeks now. He says Eagles win, so Broken Ankle is on the Eagles side. And Chris says there's a reason why Bill Belichick had a big smile. Yes, there certainly is. And again, impressive that everything still works. Impressive that everything still works. Not everybody can say that. All right, folks. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and this is it, the big one. Welcome to my Super Bowl LIX, Super Bowl 59 episode of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2024-2025 NFL season. And ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of yet another winding road. 272 regular season games and 13 playoff games will finally conclude this 13th season for your boy doing his show on YouTube. And thank you so much once again for all of the support throughout the entire season and beyond. Like, interaction on social media and just opportunities to chat with NFL fans about NFL football. It's incredible. It's my favorite thing about doing this show every year is, getting to interact with new people and having new conversations. Like, it's my favorite part of doing this show, and that doesn't happen without you folks. So I appreciate you very, very much. Now, I've had a weird way of showing that appreciation in these playoffs, and that is by my picks being absolute booty cheeks. My picks have been terrible, absolutely terrible in this postseason. There's no excuse for it. They've been really, really bad. I was 1-5 in the conference championship round. Literally the only thing I got correct was Philly and Washington going over their point total. Everything else was wrong. I picked the fun Super Bowl. The fun Super Bowl did not happen, straight up or against the spread, and got one of the totals wrong too. So it's just been a terrible playoff picks-wise. Like, the picks have only been 10, 25, and 1. Like, that's how terrible it's been for me in terms of the quality of the picks. These playoffs have not gone, and I know I've said this like 3 weeks in a row now, has not gone anywhere like how I thought it was going to go. Sometimes it happens. This is like one of the coldest streaks that I can remember having. And yeah, it's at a critical time. It's picking the postseason, but at the same time, it's like, I had a really good regular season, and just all fell apart in the postseason. There's a number of teams that can relate to that. In the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em pool for season 13 of this show, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Tyler's picks already clinched the number one, already clinched the championship in that pool. However, what has been really interesting for me to follow has been just the scoring strictly in the playoffs. Through the first 2 rounds, Bruin Steele was the top scorer in just in sort of the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but he has now been overtaken by a gentleman who I just talked about, who's in the chat, Gorian. Goki's Winners is officially, to this point, the highest scoring team in the Pick'em just during the playoffs. He has brought in 98 of 130 possible confidence points in the postseason. That's a clip of 75.4%. And Goki has, again, taken the lead over Bruin Steel. There are 5 other teams, Bruin Steel included, who could still catch Gorian in the event that Gorian is wrong with his pick this week. So obviously he's going with the Chiefs. If he is wrong and somebody takes the Eagles, there are 5 teams potentially that could leapfrog him for being the highest scoring team in the playoffs. But if that's not the case, Gorian's been killing it. And I'll take this opportunity now, as I always do, to remind you that if you go to the description of this live stream, if you go to the description of the VOD of the podcast episode, however you interact with this show, you are going to find all of my results from last week, all my straight up against the spread and over under plays for Super Bowl 59. Of course, there will only be one of each. You will find you could have found information on how to join the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em pool. It is still down there if you want to join the fun for Super Bowl 59. You can find information on the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, and you can find information on my great friends and sponsors at the Dynasty Trade Calculator. My affiliate link to the DTC is down below. If you're like me and you've taken the leap into Dynasty, Keeper, and long-term fantasy football, I believe there is no better tool available to you than the Dynasty Trade Calculator. They're incredible. Again, ratings, trade evaluations, they will cater them to the specific scoring in your league. They're an incredible resource. It's helped me win championships. I really believe in the Dynasty Trade Calculator, and if you are in Dynasty as well, I think it's a great resource for you too. For as little as a cup of coffee, you can get in on the fun at the DTC. Affiliate link is down below. So here's what we're going to do in this episode, since, of course, we've only got one game to talk about. Like I said, a little bit earlier, I'm going to talk about the winners of the big awards last night at the NFL Honors, and kind of how I would have gone in voting if I had a vote for the NFL Honors, which who knows someday. But if I had a vote in the NFL Honors, I'll tell you how I would have gone on the I said big 6 categories. Technically, it is big 7. I wasn't really counting comeback player of the year, but I mean, it is certainly considered one of the big ones. So I guess we'll talk about that one too. We'll talk about kind of what we're going to be doing over the next little while, content-wise, on this channel, and then we're going to get into the pick for Super Bowl 59. So last night, NFL Honors. It was last night, wasn't it? I think so. So the big categories that I'm talking about here are Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and MVP. Once again, I don't really count Comeback Player of the Year. It's not that it's not a credible award, because it is, but I don't know. It just doesn't have the same panache to me as the other ones, but we'll talk about it anyway. Let's start with the rookies at the top. Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year, quarterback for the Commanders, and Jared Verse of the LA Rams winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. So on the offensive side, like, I'm a big Brian Thomas Jr. guy. That would have been a vanity pick. I definitely would have voted for him, because I think he is one of the breakout stars in the NFL over the next year or two. Like, I think he's objectively the best receiver on that team. I think he's one of the best 2 or 3 young, like, rookie, sophomore wide receivers in football. I was incredibly impressed with him. I'm a big BTJ guy. This vote got it right. I mean, Jaden Daniels, like, if Daniels would have beaten the Eagles and taken the Commanders to the Super Bowl, that's like one of the great rookie seasons of all time. So, I mean, I'm not going to poo-poo them taking Jaden Daniels there as the offensive rookie of the year. They got it right. I'm just a big Brian Thomas Jr. guy. Jared Verse, this is definitely my vote, and I think they definitely got this right for the Rams. I definitely see the argument for Quinyon Mitchell, but again, he had an excellent season for the Eagles as well. But I definitely think Jared Verse, with the season he had with the Rams, one of the best now young pass rushers in the game, I think he definitely deserved to win the DROY. In terms of offensive and defensive players of the year, probably no debate on either side here. Saquon Barkley on the offensive side for the Eagles, and Pat Surtain defensively for the Broncos. They would have been my vote in both of those. And I think they're pretty objectively the correct picks in both of those categories. On the defensive side, like, I guess I could see the argument for like a Zach Bond. I think he had a nice breakout season, but I mean, Pat Surtain, like, they'll barely even target Pat Surtain, and when they do, bad things tend to happen for the offenses. So I think objectively, Saquon and Pat Surtain are probably the correct picks there. Coach of the year, Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Minnesota Vikings, winning coach of the year. I once again feel like, vanity wise, I feel like Matt LaFleur doesn't get enough conversation in these terms as one of the top coaches in the league. I don't really have a problem here with Kevin O'Connell winning it, though. I feel like of all the nominees, I would say he arguably did the most with the least, because you remember, like, the Vikings were a team that were coming into the season with a gigantic question mark at quarterback. They spent like the first half of the season without their all-pro tight end. They had multiple games this year where they're, one of the best offensive weapons in the entire sport was not healthy, not playing at 100%. They have an aging running back room. Like, there's a lot of things going against the Vikings, and for big swaths of this season, they were one of the top 2 or 3 teams in football. So I don't have any argument really with Kevin O'Connell winning that award. Again, I feel like he probably did the most with the least kind of roster and luck wise of all the nominees. So I'm totally cool with him winning it. If we want to look at comeback player of the year, Joe Burrow wins it. Sure, why not? This feels like one of those things where, like, hey man, there's no way in hell we're going to give you the MVP. So like, here's something that you can definitely credibly win. And it's not that he didn't earn the distinction of the comeback player of the year. I mean, he beat a guy that, came like this close to dying. So I don't know how they don't rename the award for Damar Hamlin, but Burrow winning it, sure, why not? Like, I kind of would have been cool with anybody winning it, but Burrow winning it, sure. Okay, now the MVP conversation. This was obviously the big one, where Josh Allen, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, wins the MVP over Lamar Jackson and over Saquon. Huge argument, obviously, for Saquon as the MVP, but there's all kinds of ways to look at this award. I think it's important to draw the distinction between best player or best season and most valuable to their team. Those are 2 very different things. So, okay, what are the Philadelphia Eagles without Saquon? They're a version of what they were last year, right? They're still a very good team. They're still a playoff team. They're still a threat in the NFC if they don't have Saquon. They do have Saquon, and he had a monster season, and that made them that much better and that much more dangerous. But if they don't have Saquon, it's not like the Eagles are, competing for the first overall pick. And similarly, I think with Lamar Jackson, if you replaced Lamar Jackson with a league average quarterback, are the Baltimore Ravens still a playoff team in the AFC? I think they probably are. Like, I still think Baltimore is one of the 7 best teams in the AFC with a league average quarterback. They're not as good as they are now, and that's the Lamar Jackson effect. Like, he's one of the best offensive weapons in football. But I think they're still a playoff team. If you put a league average quarterback on the Bills, I don't know that the Bills are still one of the best 7 teams in the AFC. I really don't. I think he has as big an impact, that being Josh Allen, on the success of his team, directly on the success of his team, as anybody else. Like, I think I would have voted for Joe Burrow before I would have voted for Lamar. And that's not a dig at Lamar. But if you put a league average quarterback on the Bengals this season, they are competing for the first overall pick. Because that team is bad in a lot of other significant areas. They would struggle, to not have a quarterback like Joe Burrow that can say, look, I am going to try to drag this team kicking and screaming into the postseason if I have to, and damn near did. That's the Joe Burrow effect. So again, I would have voted for Burrow before I voted for Lamar. Again, not a dig at Lamar. But this is probably my vote for MVP. It's probably Josh Allen 1, Joe Burrow 2, or Joe Burrow 1, Josh Allen 2, or something like that. And I might even put Saquon 3. Like, there's a lot of angles that you can take on this. It is noteworthy that this was the first season since 2012 that the first team all-pro quarterback didn't win MVP. But again, that was Lamar. But again, it's differentiating, best statistical players from most valuable to their team in that context. So I'm okay with the fact that Lamar didn't win that award. Like, could he have? Sure. I do think there are players more valuable to the success of their team than Lamar Jackson, but I'm still a big fan of Lamar. So I guess that's the way I would have gone with most of the NFL honors, I guess, is the way that they did. Again, Vanity would have had me voting for Brian Thomas Jr. Vanity probably would have had me voting for, again, Josh Allen or Joe Burrow instead of Lamar for the MVP. For the most part, I think the NFL honors probably got it right. Now, before we get into talking about my picks for the game, for Super Bowl 59, I want to talk for a second about where my content is kind of going to go from here, because we're entering what is traditionally kind of a dead zone for me content-wise, in between when the NFL ends and when the CFL picks up again in late spring, early summer, late May, early June, whenever it is. So you kind of have a couple months of a dead zone in there. So obviously NFL picks content is going to be done when this live stream finishes. And we definitely have another season of the CFL pick show coming up, which I can't wait to get started on because there's been a ton of player movement in the CFL. But we're going to put like a little asterisk on the CFL and come back to it in a second. As I've done in the last few years, there's NFL mock draft content that's going to be coming your way. I'm going to be doing at least 2 mock drafts on this channel. Maybe more than that. I might even consider doing them live. Normally I've done them as video content or podcast content, but I might pop on here maybe and do a mock draft live. And that also includes a mock draft that is currently ongoing with some of the members of the Professionals Dynasty Fantasy Football League. I brought together 7 of us, and we've been doing a first round mock draft. That content, I'm not sure how I'm going to bring that to you. I might just include it in my mock draft 1.0 because it's the context under which we're doing it is the same. Like you can't trade picks and you're drafting heavily for team needs and things like that. But there's definitely mock draft content that's coming to you. We'll see what kind of form that takes. One question I guess I would have is a couple people have talked to me about the fact that I don't do hockey content anymore. Like for years, I did NHL playoff content and haven't really done it in the last few seasons. And I'm kind of itching a little bit to get back into it. So there's a possibility that maybe I might do some playoff picks again for the NHL that would kind of, again, kind of get back into some content that I used to do and haven't done for a few years. So that's a possibility for sure. And here's why I put the asterisk on the CFL. One of my next big pieces of content, and I've been promising this to my CFL people for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I am finally going to deliver. I have them off camera here, but I have 2 boxes apiece of 2022, 2023, and 2024 Upper Deck CFL football cards. So I'm going to be doing a few massive CFL card breaks as a couple of videos. And again, some of the boxes are a couple years old, but still in the card break community, that doesn't really matter all that much. So yeah, we're going to be getting a little bit of extra CFL content in there prior to the beginning of next season, breaking some hobby boxes of 2022, 2023, and 2024 Upper Deck CFL. So keep your eye out for that. We'll be doing that in the coming weeks. All right, without further ado, Super Bowl 59, emanating from New Orleans, featuring the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. And look, part of the reason that it's taken me this long to do this show is my enthusiasm for this game is not all that high. I'm going to be perfectly honest. This to me is the least interesting of the 4 possible Super Bowl matchups that we could have had. Objectively the least interesting, and not just because it's featuring 2 teams that we've seen play each other in the Super Bowl in recent memory. It's not that, and I definitely don't have anything against the dynasty. You know what I mean? Like I'm not anti Kansas City in that sense. I think the fact that we can still have dynasties in modern sports is actually kind of a miracle. Like with all the leagues kind of pushing parity, and making every team, trying to make every team good and every team competitive and all games mean something. The fact that we can still have dynasties, championship dynasties, is pretty incredible. So I'm not against that. Part of my problem with this, I think, is like, I don't know. I feel like this again. I feel like this is the least interesting of any of the Super Bowl matchups. I'm deflated by the fact that it's not like, Bills Commanders is the dream, right? It's oh my God, Josh Allen is finally in a Super Bowl. Is he going to lose to arguably the greatest rookie season of all time? That to me, like the intrigue in that is so high. And again, I think there's more intrigue in Buffalo making it instead of Kansas City and or Washington making it instead of Philadelphia. This is just the least interesting Super Bowl matchup to me. Not to say that there aren't storylines, because of course there are. Chiefs going for the 3-peat, which has never happened before. Saquon Barkley in his first year in Philadelphia damn near sets rushing records and wins the Super Bowl, leaves New York and wins the Super Bowl in his first season. Like the stories are definitely there. It just doesn't carry the same level of intrigue for me. But here we go. Kansas City and Philadelphia. Right now the Eagles are +1. This is also part of the problem. There's not even any gamesmanship with the spread. It's a single point. Whoever you think is going to win is the team you're taking against the spread, because it's only a point or a point and a half. So where's the intrigue? There's no gamesmanship when a spread is a single point. If this was If Philly was like plus 3.5, now we've got a conversation. Now we can have an interesting conversation around that spread. But it's not. It's a single point. It's just you're going to pick whoever you pick is going to win. So again, intrigue is lowered. Total in the game set at 48.5. So that's maybe the only spot here in terms of the betting lines where I think there's some intrigue, because that's a very Vegas friendly line, but I still think there's some exploiting that can take place there. Before I give you my pick, I want to talk about a couple of Super Bowl 59 props that I really, really like. And through the lens of those props, we will get to the pick. So the first one is, I'm basically going to give you what I think is going to happen with the total for the first one. Because the first prop is an alternate point total for the game. I like the over on the 48.5 points. I think this game is in like a mid 50. So given that, I really like the over on the total as it stands. And I would be comfortable with an alt total as a prop bet of like 51.5 to still take the over. So over 51.5, you can get around like plus 130. And I think it's a nice, juicy prop to add to like same game parlays and things like that, because it's plus money, but it's not wild plus money. It just feels like something that can really help you kind of build up your same game parlays. So not only do I like the over 48.5, but I like the over on an alt total of 51.5 for prop betting purposes. We're going to look on the Eagles sideline now to Mr. Saquon Barkley, who has obviously still been running wild in the playoffs. And boy, are the Eagles ever going to just run that guy until the wheels fall off. Like that's obviously the game plan. There's no secrecy around that. To that point, the one area for the Chiefs defensively where they've really struggled in the postseason is against the run. They've given up, it's like 140 some yards per game on the ground. And since Saquon gets the vast majority of the Eagles rush yardage and they're averaging like 225 a game, I like pushing Saquon's rush yard total up to 150 plus. So if you take the alt rush prop on Saquon at 150 plus, you can get that at plus 330. That's a moneymaker as far as I'm concerned. That is a prop bet that I think you can add to a same game parlay and really push those odds through the roof. Even if it's a conservative parlay, I really like that at plus 330. Those odds are really juicy. I like that a lot. Saquon, alt rush yards, 150 or more at plus 330. Building off of that, I have one that combines the two, I think, most dangerous running backs in this game, which is Saquon Barkley and not Isaiah Pacheco, but in fact, Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, and I've been saying it all season long, is the running back on this team that has the trust of the coaches. Say whatever you want about Kareem, and a lot of it's justified. He has the trust of the coaches. So given that, there is a game special that's available on the Dueling Fans that is Saquon and Kareem combine for 200 or more rushing yards and 2 or more rushing touchdowns. So I obviously like Saquon to get a ton of yardage. I like that prop of over 150 rushing yards. So given that, if two backs only have to get to 200, like Kareem to get 50 rushing yards, maybe 45, that feels perfectly fine to me. Because again, I think he's the guy that's going to get the majority of the touches out of the backfield. So the yards part of that combined prop, I got no problem with at all. 2 or more rushing touchdowns might be the thing that screws that, but I feel like there's enough value here because it's at plus 550 for the two of them to combine for 200 plus yards and 2 or more rushing touchdowns. I still really like that. I think Kareem finds the end zone. It might just be a matter of whether that's a receiving touchdown or a rush touchdown. If it's a rush touchdown, I think that prop hits easy because I think Saquon finds the end zone as well on the ground. So I really like that. One more time, Saquon and Kareem combined for 200 or more rushing yards and 2 or more rush touchdowns. You can get that at plus 550 on the dueling fans. And I really, really like that as a combo prop. Dovetailing off of that, probably my favorite anytime touchdown prop is Kareem Hunt. He's the one that's getting most of the work in the red zone. Again, I feel like he's the one that's got the trust of the coaches. So Kareem anytime touchdown at plus 145. I love that for a parlay. I'll be tossing that in. I'd be tossing that in a bunch of parlays if I was doing a bunch of parlays. If I was doing a bunch of parlays, that would be in there in a big way. Another one that I really like, there's an alt receiving line on Noah Gray, so the second tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, so much attention is paid to Travis Kelce. Noah Gray has been having a really solid run here in the playoffs and was utilized pretty consistently throughout most of the season in Kansas City's offense. To put him at 3 or more receptions is plus 350. And I think that's just the right amount of value because I think he's going to get a lot of looks because Travis is going to get a lot of attention from that Eagles secondary. So Noah Gray, 3 or more receptions for plus 350. I like that a lot. All right, just 2 more here for you, and then I will finally drop dime on what my pick is for the game. The last 2 are just kind of fun ones. One's about the halftime show, and one's about the post game. Halftime show, Kendrick Lamar. I am very, very excited about this halftime show. I think Kendrick is going to kill it. My favorite bet for Kendrick's first song for his halftime set is going to be DNA. It's a bit of an older song, and there's a lot of good stuff on his most recent album that a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, he's going to lead with new stuff. And I totally get that. I totally get that line of thinking. But do not bet Not Like Us. It's not that he's not going to play it. It's just that's not the song you open the set with. That's the nuclear bomb that you wait till like 3/4 of the way through the set. And then when you drop it, it gets that crowd up and going again. You don't start with Not Like Us. It's definitely going to be played, but you don't start with it. I like him to start with something a little bit older, like just a reminder to the actual fan, the older fans of Kendrick that like, hey, I ain't just here because of the new stuff. I'm here because of you guys. So DNA, a song like Humble, maybe even Swimming Pools. Swimming Pools is probably my favorite Kendrick song, but I really like DNA. You can bet that at plus 500. That's really good value on a song that I think legitimately could be the first song that he comes out with. Because I feel like starting that set with that I got loyalty, and like I feel like that's the way to start that set. So I really like DNA as his first song. And then the final one, let's talk about the Vegas money sucker. That is, will Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift after the game? So you can currently bet yes on this at plus 800, I think at MGM. And I just have a message for all the Swifties that are watching. I know there's so many of you because you look at me and you think like, wow, he really looks like Travis. Uh, a message to the Swifties. Just because you want a thing to happen, please don't give Vegas your money. Like plus 800 seems like, wow, I'm going to get rich off of seeing this thing that I want to see happen. And that's how Vegas makes their money, man. They entice you with, confirming the bias that you already have. right? Like you really want to see this thing happen. So you're going to bet on it because you think you're going to make a ton of money. And the flip side of that is to bet no is like minus 2,000. So I think you'd have to risk $1,000 to win 50, something like that. I really like betting that no. Because like, yes, just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't fit my sort of mental image of the Kelsey family and whatever. Like it just doesn't, I don't think it fits. And again, I just minus 2,000. I understand like they're trying to disincentivize you to bet that because it's what's going to hit. So I don't care. Take a little bit of money, throw it on no, win a couple of dollars, and say you were correct. All right. So those are the Super Bowl 59 props that I really like. But who do I think is going to win the game? By a final score of 30-24, your Super Bowl 59 champions are the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe history happens. I believe the three-peat is on. I don't think as a team you go to Pat Riley and ask for the rights to use the phrase three-peat, which I believe he trademarked at some point. I think it was Pat Riley. Trademarked three-peat. If you're not pretty confident that I think you're going to win it, I mean, every team at this point should be confident that they're going to win the Super Bowl. But part of this is bias because I don't like Nick Sirianni. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm going to put it right out there on Front Street. I don't like Nick Sirianni. I think there's no coach in the NFL that is less deserving of the accolades that he has than Nick Sirianni. That's just my opinion. That's just how I personally feel about the guy. Not speaking objectively. That's just my feelings. I think Kansas City does it again. I still feel like there's something special enough about this team that Kansas City beats the Eagles, wins their third straight Super Bowl. As uninteresting as that may be for some people, give me the Chiefs. So obviously, give me the Chiefs minus the single point. It's, again, -1. No intrigue in the ATS bet in this game. I like the Chiefs to win. I like the Chiefs to cover. And I like the over on the 48.5 points. Now, I did say I had something a little interesting for you here at the end. And that is in my prediction for Super Bowl MVP. So the obvious answer here is, well, I mean, you've got the winning quarterback on a team that scores 30 points. So obviously it's got to be Patrick Mahomes, right? That's the smart bet. I want to take you back to the summer. I want to take you back to the Stanley Cup final in the National Hockey League. The Edmonton Oilers lose the Stanley Cup final. Connor McDavid, their team captain, despite losing in the Stanley Cup final, wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, which is the trophy for playoff MVP. I believe Saquon Barkley has such a massive game that despite the fact that the Eagles lose, Saquon Barkley wins Super Bowl 59 MVP. The only NFL precedent is that it's happened one time. And the guy that won it was like not happy that he won it, obviously, because they just lost the Super Bowl. So there's very little precedent in the NFL for this to happen. But you have a recent precedent in another league of this thing happening. And I think Saquon has such an undeniable game, and the Eagles just don't get the job done. But still, his performance is so undeniable that despite losing, Saquon Barkley is your Super Bowl 59 MVP. All right? Those are the picks. I like Kansas City to win, Kansas City to cover -1, over the 48.5 point total, and Saquon Barkley in a losing effort, winning Super Bowl MVP. And as Chris just put in the chat, the Bridgewater's Finest Super Bowl 59 parlay. Saquon anytime touchdown, Hunt anytime touchdown, Saquon 150 plus rushing yards, Hunt 50 plus rushing yards, Noah Gray 3+ receptions, and over 51.5 points. $10 wins $2,613.25. Your boy gave it to you. You heard it here first. Bet it or don't bet it. Obviously, you do you, but your boy just gave you a winner right there. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for another season of Justin's NFL Football Pick Show. Season 13 in the books. So incredibly happy to do this show and to have the little community that I have, the community that's excited about this and looks forward to these streams every week. I love doing the show in this context, streaming, doing it as a podcast. I'm so glad that this is the way I decided to take the direction of the show, because it gave it new life, and I love doing it this way. And I'm so glad that you guys dig that I do it this way as well. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, for yet another season of NFL football picks. We will see you again. Well, I guess in September. Now there's mock draft content coming too. So the NFL fans will not be underserved here in the next few months. But the pick show will be back in September. So we'll see you next year. Appreciate you. Thank you. Take care. Be well.